Greetings, everyone. I am Dr. Tina Dougherty, Clinical Relations Veterinarian at Lincoln Memorial University's College of Veterinary Medicine, here today to chat with you about feedback. We are looking for you to offer our students this great gift. So we'll review what good feedback looks and sounds like, and how to give it after seeing and hearing what the students do and say. First off, thank you for partnering with us. After all, you are helping to educate our fourth-year students in how best to apply their hard-earned classroom knowledge in practical clinical situations. Additionally, we want to make sure that you as clinical educators, along with our campus faculty, work seamlessly together to create students who are practice-ready at graduation. Indeed, those clinical experiences which you supply our students are essential components to our educational plan, and only you can perform your magic with them, helping to mold their competence and confidence through their experiences with you, in conjunction with your observations, coaching, and feedback. As we all know, vet students are not dummies. They've worked hard on both clinical and professional skill development and have learned all manner of things over the last 3 years of school. Moreover, they've been tested on information and concepts out the wazoo, or at least as far as a classroom can assess them. We could look at it another way. Until now, vet students have been in a safe, comfortable academic cocoon or pupa of sorts for the last 3 years. And it's finally time for them to break out and morph into something new and better. They are prepared to grow beyond their accumulated knowledge. That requires a challenge, which is where you come in. Don't feel bad to challenge them. Not to the point of panic, mind you, but just past their comfort zone and into the learning or growth zone. Otherwise, they won't be able to emerge at the other end, fully transformed into a competent practitioner. Oh yes, we appreciate seeing them stay in the zone where all the magic happens. Of course, unlike with butterflies, that metamorphosis in a student is not encoded into their genes. The evolution is going to involve exercising quite a bit of mental calisthenics on their part. They must recall and relate information to answer the questions you ask. In that way, they can begin to make the connections they need in order to become better critical thinkers. Now, I'm no psychologist or anything, but we do need to take a moment to talk about the concepts of memory. I personally feel I have issues with it. Heck, I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. But that has to do with how stuff is or is not getting stored in my head. Granted, I would know what I was eating when I ate it. That is the sensory memory. But then I should have stored what I ate in my short-term memory and, oh yeah, I had a bowl of Honey Nut Cheerios. Yay! At least I remembered something. But that is what short-term memory recall is for. Of course, if I'd wanted to remember what I had for breakfast last Tuesday, or a month ago today, or if a week from now you were to ask me what I had for breakfast today, well, that's a different story altogether. I would have had to build up pathways to help me remember my sequence of breakfasts better in my long-term memory. That is what we need our students to access, use, and strengthen their long-term memories, solidifying knowledge that got squirreled away in their heads over the last 3 years. They've learned all that stuff before, and now they have to recall and apply it. It's almost like requesting it from an archive. And the more associations we can get the students to make to connect other bits of information that they've learned before or are learning now, the better their recall and ability to retrieve it will become. Early on in the clinical year, students are not sure of their skills and definitely don't have a lot of confidence in their abilities or in that knowledge we want them to dredge up. To get them more comfortable, you may want to give them a schedule or a routine to fit into. It's probably a good idea to do what you can to get them involved right away in your daily functions on the site. This will help each student feel safe and think of themselves as a member of your team, thus helping to build their confidence. You can then observe their specific skills and interactions with others more easily too, since you'll know who they're with or what they're doing at any given time. In that way, the focused feedback on the behaviors and skills you have observed can be presented easily to them later. You should be prepared to offer feedback in these areas. We actually review these skills in depth in our companion training module on the rhyme scheme. In case you haven't noticed, this generation of students really craves feedback. While helping to quell their insecurities, your pearls of wisdom, in the form of feedback, will allow them to know where to focus their attention for improvement. Which means offering feedback should begin during that first day's orientation session. At the very least, setting the expectations and the groundwork for feedback can be established at that time. Explain to the students that they can expect feedback from anyone on your team. That will make the student feel prepared and help them know it's coming from a good place. They'll know how they're doing and how to improve throughout the entire rotation. By the way, if you aren't sure what should happen during orientation on a student's first day yet, take a glance at this list of ideas. Also, don't hesitate to use our student handbook for ideas on punctuality, appearance, professionalism, and so on as well. Sadly, not giving a thorough orientation to your practice, service, or office at the beginning of a rotation is the #1 source of negative student feedback in many medical professional programs. Before we go any further, it may be important to take a step back and make sure we all know exactly what we're talking about when I say the word feedback. You may all have a pretty good idea of what feedback is, but in case not, let's define it in a straightforward way. The key concept to take away from this is that you comment on observed actions in order to improve something, be it a skill, a behavior, or whatever. You and your colleagues, as mentors, need to be sincere and approachable by the student for this to happen organically. You must also be masters of nonverbal communication. The feedback you offer is not just registered verbally. Remember, so much of the meaning we convey to others is not in what we say, but how we say it. Like it or not, our nonverbals convey our true feelings, so be sure to be aware of yours. If you look like this, standing there with a scowl on your face, your arms crossed, your shoulders scrunched, and sound like this, "Why did you do that?" you could seem pretty accusatory or unhappy, right? In contrast, what if you looked like this? Sitting down, fingers gently tented over your mouth, with a pensive look, and sound like this. "Why did you do that?" Oh, you'd be delivering a very different message, wouldn't you? Same words, very opposite meanings. Actions truly do speak louder than words. We need a steady course of OFA for this to work. No, not the one for pelvic radiographs, rather the one where you observe their skills and behaviors and then offer feedback on those actions. Make note of how the student accepts and implements the feedback too, because you'll need to remember those things so you can assess them appropriately as you go along. When should you give your student feedback? I think you get the point. As we said a couple slides back, from the moment they sit down with you that first day to go over their learning contracts until you give them their final day review, you can be providing them feedback. You can't wait until the last day, because then there's no way to see if they responded to and improved with your feedback and grew as a result. During orientation that first day, you may want to ask the student for a copy of the syllabus for the rotation they're on, if they don't give you one right off the bat. That way you'll know what overarching objectives are in place for the student's time with you. During that day, the student will also provide you with his or her learning contract, which we mentioned on the previous slide. On it, they will have listed the 3 SMART goals they would like to accomplish at your site. Be sure to share this learning contract with others in the practice and regularly review the goals contracted with the student. Goals may change during the experience as they learn more about the practice and what they can get to do there. Please encourage them to do that. Giving feedback to the student is evidence of your interest in them as a person and of your intention to help them grow and develop. It may well be the single most important part of training. More on the idea of intent later. The ability of teachers or instructors to accurately observe trainee performance and provide effective feedback is considered one of the most critical aspects of coaching in any sort of medical training. Don't let your hectic schedule or the packed schedule of others in your hospital be an excuse for anyone not to offer at least in-the-moment feedback. While everyone is busy with patients or administrative duties, still, feedback is a big part of the preceptor's job when working with a student, and ultimately, a few well-chosen words can help them improve a skill dramatically. That is, so long as they are observed doing it, of course. Another thing which may interfere with feedback is avoidance behavior. In general, veterinarians don't like confrontation, so don't think of offering feedback as a confrontational activity. Rather, think of it more as a reminder, a friendly suggestion about a skill needing improvement or an attitude needing adjustment, just like you would for a staff member. And as we mentioned earlier, before you jump to conclusions, we would recommend you ask questions on any observed behavior. We all know what happens when we assume. Just saying. If you can't ask about a situation in the moment, try to think what would cause or motivate the student to speak or act that way. You may be able to vet it out yourself, no pun intended. But if not, when you do have time to talk to the student about it, be sure to ask them without sounding accusatory and give them the chance to offer their side of the story. Remember, our students want to do well. Their intent is not to be doing anything wrong, either for your patients or for your hospital. So keep the thought of positive intent in your minds when speaking with them. You may want to call your discussions feedback sessions. You may even want to ask permission to give feedback. Be sure to solidify everything you say as feedback when you comment. Things like, I saw, I observed, I noticed. If needed, ask a few probing questions to let the student first share how they think they are doing. And if they don't seem to know, just ask even more probing questions. Offering a feedback sandwich is a good tip too. What went well, what could be changed for the better in the middle, and then close it out with something else that was positive. What are the components that go into good feedback? With the goal of improvement in mind, it is best to direct your choice of words toward a behavior or action the student can do something about. For instance, make that knot tighter. Not something like, you're too short to be a veterinarian, or your hands are too big to fit in that space. It's all about the decisions and actions they make, rather than assumed intentions or interpretation or things that can't be changed. This is not an exhaustive list here. However, it gives you an idea of what we're looking for. Try to stick with if statements like these, or and statements. Both if and are word stems that do not carry bias. They can be used to suggest ideas without sounding judgmental. Other opening words could be choices like perhaps or I wonder. On the other hand, but puts a damper on a thought like, you have the makings of a great veterinarian, but you're not there yet. Or, depending on how a sentence is phrased, a but might even sound passive-aggressive or condescending. I know you want to be fashionable, but those shoes are not safe to wear here. Some of the most important benefits of feedback are provided here, and again, it's not an exhaustive list. While improving things like increasing confidence, clinical performance, and level of engagement on the part of the student, it also prevents misunderstandings, hard feelings, and the reinforcement of bad habits. Additionally, you will get more satisfaction out of this arrangement, and your clients and their pets will benefit too. It's a win-win for everyone. In the end, we know you will have made giant strides in developing our fourth-year students into the confident, competent, career-ready graduates we expect them to be. To the future!